everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. Well, y'all, I did it. My goal last week was to finish all the books I was in the middle of, and, well, I did. And I don't have any overdue library books, so the world is my oyster this week. Of the 88 million books on my TBR for August, I can literally read any of them. Not sure what my plan is, other than I have started a +1 for Murder. This follows Emma, who was running her own travel agency, but business has kind of dried up. She has a side job where a man set up in his will that she would be paid to have tea with his wife weekly. He has since passed, so she does that every week. And when Dottie finds out about her business, suggests that she should be doing exactly what she's doing with Dottie, being a friend. There are a lot of people who could just use somebody to talk to or to accompany them somewhere. So she convinces Emma to set up a business called A Friend for Hire. She gets some clients, one of whom is Brian, and Brian would like her to come to an open mic night with him. He is going to get up on stage and recite a poem, and he wants somebody in the audience to clap for him because he has invited 4 people, all of whom are going to want him dead. She thinks he's being a bit silly, but midway through the performance, he ends up dropping dead. And because Emma was one of the last people to see him alive, she becomes a potential suspect. So I'm enjoying this so far. I'm on page 48. I've already laughed out loud. I'm definitely hooked and intrigued where this is going. I like the characters we've met so far, so this feels like it's going to have some good vibes. As for what else I read, I don't know. I'm hoping to work on my Phase 10 TBR, because if I could finish that or get a good chunk into that this week, then that would mean I could easily film Phase 10 at any point in the next couple of weeks, because right now it's nice here. No air conditioner, no fan, but the next 3 days are supposed to be in the 90s, and then it's supposed to be like high 80s. So who knows if and when I will check in. We're going to play it by ear. I'm really, really sorry for all of the vlogs where it's like, hey, this is my plan at the beginning of the week. Hey, here's the end of the week and everything I read this week. I feel bad that this is the content you're getting, but between the heat and bad brain days, it's just been my state of being for pretty much the entire summer. So thank you for rolling with me. Like I said, I will try my best to check in this week, but no promises. The only thing I know is that I will be reading this. As for everything else, I'm going to kind of play it by ear. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what I end up getting up to this week, given that I have no overdue books. I'm not playing Libby Chicken or anything like that. So we'll see what I get up to, and hopefully I will check in with you in a couple of days to give you an update. So would you look at that? I'm actually checking in this week. It's a little after midnight on Friday, so there's only a couple of days left to this vlog, but I am checking in, and that's all that matters. I had hoped to check in earlier today, but I actually spent most of today cleaning and sorting through some stuff. I had some energy. I was feeling good, so I felt that I should jump on that because I was behind on some stuff with some energy issues and the bad brain week I had last week and heat. So here's hoping that we might be finally out of the heat tunnel, because the upcoming future forecast looks pretty decent weather-wise. I have some days where the high is in the low 70s, and at night we might even dip into the 40s, which is very exciting because it will make it easier to film this, which I need to do, and I will film while I know it is cool, just in case we get a heat wave. But that's not what we're here for right now. We're here to check in on what I've read this week. It's been a so-so week. Let's dive in, and I will let you know what I've read. So first, I finished a +1 for Murder, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I thought this was a really solid start to the series. I really liked the banter between our main character, Emma, and the characters she encounters, both through her investigations and just general relationships she starts to form in this book. I really like the concept of her being a friend for hire and how that puts her into all of these interesting situations. I thought the mystery was quite interesting, with this guy hiring her to essentially be a witness because he's worried when he does this poetry night that he is going to end up dead because he's invited 4 people who specifically will want him dead, and he does end up dying and trying to piece that together. I had a fun time with this. I don't think it'll be everybody's cup of tea, but I enjoyed it and definitely plan to continue the series. Then I read The Last of August, and I gave this 3.5 stars. This is the second book in the Charlotte Holmes series, and this follows Charlotte Holmes and Jamie Watson. In this one, Charlotte's uncle goes missing, and so her and Jamie have to team up to figure out what happened to him. I thought this was fine. It's not one I have tons to say about. I like the concept of Charlotte and Jamie being descendants of Sherlock and Watson of old, and kind of refreshing that for a modern era. There were some interesting things that happened at the very end that I wasn't expecting, but the mystery didn't particularly hold my interest as well as other mysteries I've read, especially this week, considering I'm pretty sure every book I finished has been some flavor of mystery. So I've been on a mystery binge, so this just did not keep my attention the way A+1 for Murder did and a couple of the other mysteries I read. I will be interested to see where things go with Charlotte and Jamie in book 3, but this is not a series I'm like chomping at the bit to continue, so it will probably have to wait till it comes out of my TBR jar. I feel like it's one, though, I won't forget too much of, so I feel confident I will get back to it at some point, and given how my TBR jar has been dwindling, it might be sooner rather than later. Then I read Body at Buccaneers Bay, and I gave this 3.5 stars. Now, this mystery I thought was slightly more intriguing. In this one, Ellery is on a dive with Jack, and they're looking for, a legendary pirate galleon, the Blood Red Rose, and end up discovering an old-fashioned diver suit that's water damaged and encrusted with barnacles. So what ended up happening once they find this body as it gets tested, it is from a different time period than the suit. So they're trying to figure out how this body ended up in the suit, what it was doing where they found it. Was it looking for gold? Did it get tossed there? Did somebody set this up? But the key feature is that there is a bullet hole in the body's skull, so it probably didn't get there by natural causes. There were several things in this that I really liked. I like Ellery and the relationships he's developed in this little town. I really like that Ellery's family is visiting in this one. I like getting to meet his family and learn more about them and get to see Ellery interact with them. This was another mystery, like I said, that just didn't hold my attention, but I'm still enjoying the background stuff and the character development in this one more than I enjoyed the character development and background stuff in The Last of August. So I think this is a slightly higher 3.5, but still not my favorite. And then I read Aunt Dimity and the Next of Kin and gave this 4.5 stars, and I read Aunt Dimity and the Deep Blue Sea, and I gave this 3.5 stars. So we'll start with Next of Kin, since that is chronologically how the order goes for the series. In this series, we're following Laurie, who in the first book inherits a cottage and a bit of wealth from Aunt Dimity, a person she thought was just a storybook character her mom made up for bedtime stories, but learns after Dimity's death that this was actually her mom's best friend. They met during the war, and one lived in England, one lived in America, and they never got to see each other again, but they corresponded all throughout their lives, and it was something that Laurie's mom kept to herself. She shared Dimity with her daughter by giving her the stories, but Dimity, the person, was just for her mom, and when Dimity dies, of course, she leaves everything to her best friend's daughter, which leads Laurie to moving to Dimity's cottage in this little town called Finch. She ends up settling into the cottage in Finch and living her life there, and we get to see all these sorts of different mysteries. In this one, she is volunteering at a local hospital and spending time with patients who don't seem to have any visitors. She ends up chatting with this woman named Miss Beecham, and a few days after she meets this woman dies. A few days after her death, Laurie receives a letter saying, "I want you to go to my apartment and pick out whatever furniture or books or whatever that you would like. You made my last days really nice." Laurie also finds out that there are several other people who have gotten really nice gifts left to them by Miss Beecham, and at a far more substantial rate than she was expecting. And when she goes to Miss Beecham's apartment, finds it filled with all of these amazing old antiques, and ends up stumbling upon a mystery that seems like Miss Beecham set up for her, and it somehow involves her next of kin, who is her younger brother, who her lawyer is struggling to find. So Laurie dives into the mystery of Miss Beecham's life and why she seemed to live so modestly and have nobody there when she died, and yet generously gave away things to all sorts of various people that she knew and didn't know, and what happened to her brother. I really enjoyed the mystery of this. I loved seeing Laurie try to track down her next of kin. I got really attached to Miss Beecham through the stories we found out about her after she passed. This was a mystery that kept me hooked from the word go, and I struggled to put down. Whereas in Deep Blue Sea, Laurie ends up going to stay at a castle in Scotland that is owned by a family friend after she and her family are threatened by someone dubbing themselves Abaddon. This is believed to be a client who's out for revenge on her husband, so for her safety, she goes to this castle, and once there, starts to notice some strange things that are happening on this island where this castle is, and starts to dig in to that mystery while also worrying about what is going on with this Abaddon and where they are at and if she and her loved ones are safe. I did not enjoy this one as much as Next of Kin. I wasn't as into the mystery or the story. I missed being in Finch and being around the main characters. Now, granted, this one, Laurie is at home, but she's spending a lot of time chasing down leads for Miss Beecham, so most of it isn't set in Finch, but the mystery was enough to make up for the fact that the general cast of characters wasn't there, and this one didn't have that general cast of characters, and the mystery didn't hook me as much as Next of Kin, so I felt it was lacking there. Again, not a bad mystery. I would say that of the three I gave 3.5 stars, this was the one that was most interesting and hooked me the most. But it also could be that, as I said in last week's vlog, I've been in a very bad brain space, and these are rereads. And this is book, I think, 10 and 11 or something like that in the series. So it is a series I'm intimately familiar with, both from having read like the first 23, 24 books in the series at one point or another. So I'm doing a reread, even though it's been a very long time and the details aren't at all fresh. None of this sounded familiar, but I have technically read it before, and I'm used to the writing style and being in this world with these characters. So there's something comforting about coming back to this reread. And so I think that definitely played a part in this being my most enjoyable 3.5 star. In that same vein, I have also picked up Aunt Dimity Goes West. I think I have one more on my TBR this month. Yes, I have one more on my TBR this month after this. I am trying to catch up on this series before the end of the year. I kind of have to, because I believe I put the most recent book on one of my 2025 TBRs. I don't know whether it was Series-a-thon or Breeze 25 and 25 bingo board, but it is on one of my 2025 TBRs, so I kind of need to catch up to finish it. In this one, Laurie is headed to Colorado for a vacation, and once there, she realizes that the owner of the cabin she's staying in, which was loaned to her by an acquaintance of her husband, seems to have been abandoned in a hurry by the acquaintance and his family. They haven't been back, which is kind of odd, and the caretaker that was supposed to be there left 2 weeks ago, and nobody seems to quite know what's going on with that. So Laurie is going to get entangled in this mystery of what is going on at this house, and why do people keep seeming to abruptly leave and not come back. I am on page 66, and I'm, again, missing the characters in Finch. We'll see if this mystery can really draw me in and make me care about the story despite the unfamiliar surroundings. I will be happy, though, when we're back in Finch. I don't know if we will be in the next one or not. I know there are more in Finch because I can remember details about certain plot points. So I know at some point we have to go back to Finch because I remember that. I just don't know exactly when in the timeline. And again, if this is, like I said, book 12 and there's like 24, 25, 26 somewhere in there, then I have plenty of books that could be set in Finch. So we'll see, but that is going to be a priority for the rest of the week. Another book I started is Tender at the Bone by Ruth Reichl. I've read the first chapter. I thought the first chapter was interesting and drew me in. This is a memoir, and I believe Ruth Reichl has something to do with food. Yeah, I mean, it says it's the witty and compelling chronicle of a culinary sensationalist coming of age. So I don't really know much about her, but what pulled me to this was in the description, it refers to her mother as the notorious food poisoner known as the Queen of Mold, and I was very intrigued by that moniker and how her mom got it. So I'm already interested in the story just based on the first chapter, and if it continues the way the first chapter went, I think this could be a easy 4-star read. Then another book where I've only read the first chapter is Paris Dalincourt is About to Crumble. Like I said, first chapter, very, very small chapter, so not much to say. This is the second book in the Winter Bakes All series, and we're going to be following Paris, who has anxiety and self-doubt and is going to be going on the baking show, Bake Expectations, and isn't sure how he's going to deal with that. He doesn't have the confidence to believe he's got a shot, and will develop a growing romance with Tariq, who is another contestant, I believe, on this bake show, and I guess we'll see from there. I've only just started this. I got sucked into a mystery vortex and put this down. And then the only other update I have is that I've made progress in Library of Souls. This is the third book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. There we go. I got there in the end. I'm on page 216. I'm about halfway through. This is another one that's feeling very 3.5 stars. I'm curious, though. There's some interesting things going on right now, and some pieces are starting to come together that are making me curious. I don't love this series. I think they've all been in the 3.5, 3.75 star range of the first two. So we'll see what I think about the series when I get done with this. I will say I love that this series, one of the things I love anyways about this series, is that there are pictures throughout. And I believe they are, if I remember correctly, real pictures that he gives citations for, if memory serves. He actually finds these pictures. I'm trying to find, I think there's yes. It says the following photos were graciously lent for their use by their owners. The images that appear in this book are authentic vintage found photographs, and with an exception of a handful that have undergone digital processing, they are unaltered and have been collected over the years, except for the ones I think that were shared. So these are real pictures that somehow tie into the story he's telling. And I think that's really cool as a visual medium of being inspired by pictures, but also finding pictures that match the story you're trying to tell. And so I'm really enjoying that aspect of the series, even if the series is not a new favorite or anything. So you go, that's my update. Not a bad week, but also if I want any shot at making it so that I'm somewhat caught up, I really, really need to pick up the pace. Because I would like to feel like in September, I don't have to read 70 books to finish my TBR. And my September TBR is already bloated because of my reading goals of try to get my ebooks under a certain number, I don't remember what, read all of my books on my 2021 haul, and read any book I haul in 2025, and I keep buying books. So I don't think I'm going to complete those goals, but it'll be interesting to see how close, I don't want to give up on them, because then I know I won't prioritize any of those books. So I feel the best thing I can do is continue to try to read as much of that as possible. And so I've kind of got things planned of, okay, this feels like a September book. This is a Christmas romance. I'm going to read this in December. So I don't want to change that too much, but it's creating these really, really bloated TBRs. So we'll see where I end up at the end of the week. And hopefully I can finish this and at least one, maybe two others. We'll see. I don't know if it'll be these two specifically, but we'll see what I get up to, and I will check back in at the end of the week and let you know. So I'm here to finally wrap up this vlog. We're in the evening on Sunday. I did not film earlier because I woke up this morning and it was hot and humid, and I saw that it was going to rain and that it was going to cool right off. And as you can see by my getup, it has definitely cooled off. I am much more comfortable in my beanie and my hoodie. So I definitely think I made the right choice. I did manage to squeeze in some more reads. My reading mojo has been pretty good. I need to get back on my editing mojo, so that is definitely going to be a goal for next week. But you'll have to watch next week's vlog to find out how I do there. For the rest of this week's vlog, let's dive into what I ended up finishing. First, I finished Library of Souls, and I gave this 3.75 stars. This is the third book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I really liked how this one wrapped up. There were definitely some massive twists in here I didn't see coming. The end of this book really kept me engaged, and it left in a manner where I'm curious to see how book 4 plays out. I did not intend to pick up book 4. I still don't, but I'm far more interested in book 4 than I expected to be based on where I was when I checked in with you in the last clip. So I would say that it's done its job of keeping me invested. This series, I should mention, follows Jacob, who had a really special bond with his grandfather, and when his grandfather ends up dying, it leads him to some discoveries about his grandfather's life, including Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. In this one, we're continuing with Jacob's journey as he follows the events that have been kind of played out in the first 2 books and set the events up that happen in here. So I just think this is a very different series, and like I said, it's not necessarily a new favorite, but it is one I did end up enjoying and would not mind if it popped out of my TBR jar and surprised me. Then I finished 2 more Aunt Dimity books. I gave Aunt Dimity Goes West 3.75 stars, and I gave Aunt Dimity Vampire Hunter 3. I believe I was partway through Aunt Dimity Goes West. This follows Lori as she's in Colorado, and one of the owners of the home is friends with her husband and allowed Lori to use this like cabin of theirs, and they left at like Christmas time, seemingly in a rush, and haven't been back since. And then the caretaker just randomly ups and leaves, and so Lori ends up trying to figure out why the homeowner and his family, and then later the caretaker, seemingly all left in a hurry. I thought the mystery was decent in this one. I liked the way it tied into the previous book, because I think that was important given what happened in Aunt Dimity and the Deep Blue Sea. This was definitely not my favorite in the series because, again, we're in Colorado and I was excited to get back to Finch, which we did end up doing in Aunt Dimity Vampire Hunter. The problem with this one, though, is that I did not like a lot of the choices Lori makes in this one. So in this one, there is an individual who is spotted by Lori's twin sons that they say is a vampire. And a lot of the adults around her sons don't take them seriously, but she does because her sons are not liars. And she soon finds out they were right. They did see somebody. Obviously, Lori doesn't necessarily think this is actually a vampire, but her kids have just started school. She's experiencing a lot of separation anxiety with that, and it's causing her to make decisions that she wouldn't normally make. And it made it very hard to support her actions and the choices she was making. There was some twists and turns in this one that I did like, which is why I got 3 stars and not lower, because Lori really was just not behaving in the way she usually does and the way she goes about solving mysteries. So I didn't necessarily love that. I did like the glimpses we got of Finch and kind of being back with those familiar characters. I thought that was nice. The other thing I should mention in this series is that there is definitely an age gap romance in here that I think is not great. I knew it was coming because I've read these books before, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'd prefer it didn't exist, but alas, what can I do? I didn't write these. I don't think it's something I'm going to enjoy. I know that the character that is the younger of the two has always been written as extremely mature for their age. So I suppose that helps a little, but it is like a bigger age gap than I would be comfortable with. So, we'll see how much that factors into future books and whether that drags my rating down depending on how things go. I do want to finish reading the series, and I think once I get all the way done, we'll see where I feel. Maybe I'll unhaul it and decide, but I really want to give the entire series another go. And honestly, like I said, book 24 is on my TBR, or 25, 23, somewhere. So we're going to roll with it, and we'll see how I feel by the end of 2025. Regardless, they did work really, really well for the headspace I was in with the familiarity and the ease of reading them. They're not super complicated books. They're really easy to follow along with. Like, the writing style isn't anything extravagant. So that worked really well for the headspace I was in. So I will at least give them that, and that it was helpful that I chose to pick up 5 of them now as opposed to some other month. And then the last book I finished a series for me, and that is The Complete Chai's Sweet Home Part 4, and I gave this 4 stars. This follows a young cat named Chai who gets separated from her mom and is running around looking for her and stops in a park and stumbles across a little boy who is also tripped. He and his family end up bringing her home and she becomes part of the family, and we see her adapt to life with this family. I thought the choices that were made at the end of this series were interesting. A lot of the loose threads were wrapped up in a really nice way. There were a couple things that I didn't love, hence the 4-star rating, but to explain them would be spoilers. But let's see. I didn't like where Chai and her family ended up, like how that kind of came about. I'm trying to keep it vague, but give you enough details that if you've read it or you end up reading it and were to watch this, you would know what I was talking about. So I would have made slightly different choices based on the way things kind of played out and the choices that were made. And there was another character who I felt kind of got left with loose ends, and I didn't like that because I wanted to know what happened with them because of the stories that were set up with them. So that is why I got 4 stars and not higher. I still think this is a really cute series that has very cute illustrations. Chai is very cute, and I love the bond she has with Yohei, who is the little boy she meets in the park. So very, very cute series, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad I ended up picking it up. Now, I was in the middle of these two, did not pick them up, did not make any more progress with these. Instead, I decided to pick up 2 different books. Don't ask me why. I don't remember the reasoning. It could be, actually, as I'm looking, it could be because I'm reading those physically and I don't have audiobooks, and I had audiobooks for both of these. The first I picked up is New Dragon City. I'm on page 36. I have absolutely no opinions yet. I don't even really know what's going on. I know we're following Noah and his father. Apparently, dragons came and decimated the world, including New York City. They live underground, except for when the dragons are hibernating. And I believe where I'm at, we just found out that the dragons might be waking up a little bit early, so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, given the fact that the dragons aren't supposed to be awake yet. Like I said, I'm not far enough in to really have an opinion, but it says that a chance encounter between Noah and a young dragon forces him to question everything he thought he knew. So it looks like he's going to end up meeting a dragon and realizing that maybe there's more to dragons than he thought, and that the stories he heard are not as accurate as he thought they were. Or maybe there was more to it than he knew. It'll be interesting. We'll see how I get on with that. And then the other one I picked up is Howl's Moving Castle. And the reason I have 2 audiobooks going is because this is a reread, and I remember thinking when I got done with it, I don't know that I gave that a fair chance. I was just listening to the audiobook. I wasn't reading along, and I wonder if I would have enjoyed it more had I physically read it. And so I do have the audiobook this time, but I'm making an intentional choice to physically be reading along with my eyeballs as I'm listening to the audiobook. Whereas I was listening to this while I was working on something, so I didn't have the physical book in my hand. So this follows Sophie, who is the eldest of 3 daughters, and in this world, the eldest does not end up amounting to much. It says she's destined to fail miserably should she ever leave home to seek her fate. She ends up attracting the attention of the Witch of the Waste and making her upset, and she ends up cursing Sophie to be an old crone, but Sophie can't tell anybody that she's still Sophie. So Sophie leaves her home and ends up at Wizard Howl's castle. And once there, realizes this might be her only chance to break the curse that was placed on her by the Witch of the Waste. I think I'm definitely enjoying this more than I did the first time. I think it is not a familiar enough world to me to be reading it without physically reading along. I also think I might have been listening to it even faster than 3 times speed because I was relying a lot more on Hoopla back then, and I try to use Libby more now, and 3 times speed is the max on Libby. I definitely remember some of the details, like not everything is unfamiliar, and I'm pretty sure I remember how the story ends, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm enjoying the ride. I'm kind of wanting to read The House with Chicken Legs just because Howl's Castles moves, and it's made me want to read that story again. And I'm wondering if there was any inspiration in this book from the story of The House with Chicken Legs, because I think that would predate this, because I'm pretty sure that's like an older legend. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know if I mentioned, I'm on page 100. So I got 100 pages in, and like I said, I'm enjoying this and very curious as to where it's going. So we'll see if I can finish that and if I end up enjoying it more on this reread. So there you have it. That was my week. Not a bad one if I do say so myself. We're making some progress. I feel much better than I did when I last checked in. So that is also a good thing. Hopefully we will continue to make progress, and next week will go much smoother than this week has. That being said, it is time to wrap this vlog up. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me castle-related emojis. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!